meeting talking about how do we, because let me tell you, there's lots of forms of cultural prejudice, and some of you in this room will probably identify with this. Having a Southern accent isn't always the most popular thing either, and it tends to stereotype you in terms of where you come from. But she's very different from a lot of people with Southern accents. So we're sitting around in a room talking about how to deliver that message, and her husband says, well, there is that letter from Dr. King. And she goes, she was such a humble person. She said, no, that was a personal note. I couldn't possibly use that in the campaign. Well, of course, she was overridden, and we included that letter in newspaper ads and mailers, and she was a runaway victor for county supervisor. And the thing that always drove me crazy was that she could say the same things that I was saying, but because of her graciousness and her culture, they seemed so much more conservative than when I was saying them. As one of the first women elected officials on the North Coast, she also was a role model for many, many, many women who followed, including the members of this House, Assemblywoman Patty Berg, Assemblywoman Virginia Strawn Martin, Supervisor Bonnie Neely, who for many years served as the chair of the California Coastal Commission. All were inspired and mentored to do what they did as a result of Sarah Parsons. She is, in addition to Tom, she is survived by a grown son who I don't know. I don't even know his name, who lives in Atlanta from her first marriage. But she also has two children that she raised in a second generation in California who still live in California, Pam and Tim, who are both working journalists in Northern California. So Sarah Mitchell Parsons was 99 years old. She mentored a young man who was 40 years younger than she was. Truly amazing to me, but as I said, it helped me get to where I am. She lived a rich, full life. I'm very sad and I'm going to miss her, but really we should celebrate her many achievements, both in the South, helping to lead the civil rights movement, in writing a book to tell her stories, and in being a community leader on the North Coast, and a role model for women and for young men to get involved in government and politics. So I ask that we adjourn in memory of Sarah Mitchell Parsons. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Please bring the names to the desk to be printed in the journal. Okay, we're going to take up SB 97 without reference to file on the amendments. This procedural motion was passed. Clerk will read SB 97. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 97 with amendments by Assemblymember Blumenfield.
Mr. Blumenfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members.
On the amendments.
On the amendments. No, on the bill.
Can we do we need to adopt the amendments, so can we do a voice vote on the amendments? Okay, without objection. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Out to print. Oh, sorry, we have a mock-up at the desk. Without objection, we're going to take the bill up in mock-up form without reference to file. Without objection, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 97 by the Senate Committee on Budget and Fiscal Review and Act relating to adult day health care, making appropriation therefore to take effect immediately. Bill related to the budget.
Mr. Blumenfield.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, members, what this bill does is fairly narrow in scope. It changes a date from September 1st to November 1st. Specifically, it delays the elimination of the adult day health care as an optional Medi-Cal benefit from September 1 to November 1. The reason for this is as we all know, we took a vote to eliminate the adult day health care program with the understanding that we'd be creating a new program, the Keeping Adults from Institutions program, that would follow on. The administration has been working to try to figure out how to transition people and hopefully also how to move them into the Keeping Adults from Institutions program. Timing is an issue. In order to eliminate the program, they had to get a federal waiver from CMS, and they achieved that waiver. And according to our law, after 60 days of getting that waiver, the program is eliminated. Well, the transition plans are not in place, and the CAFE program has not been established, and time is running out, and a lot of these really important facilities that are basically keeping adults from having to go to nursing homes are on the brink of going out of business, and many of them are going to close their doors. What this bill does is it simply says it buys us a little bit more time. It buys us 60 days and says, let's keep the adult day health care going for 60 days so that we can try to figure out this whole situation. It doesn't There's $85 million budgeted in the state budget for transition and for the CAFE program. The money for continuing the program for these 2 months would come directly out of that 85. There would be no new money under this bill, but it basically would just allow for a little bit more of a seamless transition and allow for the creation of the new program in a way that ideally will avoid disruptions in service for some of our most vulnerable seniors. And I ask for your aye vote.
Ms. Conway?
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. We are very sympathetic to the situation that we're talking about. If you will remember, most of us didn't support the cuts for these programs in the first place. But that being said, the problem is when you get something thrown at you at the last minute, we're open to discussion. We certainly want to talk about this. But the process of this jamming at the last minute and not giving us an opportunity to work with you on it makes it impossible for us to support this at this time.
Mr. Ng.
Yeah, Madam Speaker and members, the adult day health care issue has been a pressing one for many months. And in our districts, we know that on September 1st, they will go dark. But even now, their creditors are holding them hostage by saying that there's not going to be any income. Their patients are in complete disarray, wondering what's going to happen to them even now. And so whether or not this bill came up last night at midnight or comes up today or yesterday, on its face, it just stands for common sense, good policy. The boat is sinking, and here's a lifeboat, and I think we need to take it no matter what hour it is. Respectfully request an aye vote. Thank you.
Ms. Yamada?
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise in strong and urgent support for this SB 97 amendment. We are facing a tremendous crisis in California. 37,000 recipients, as well as thousands of employees, are facing an imminent closure September 1st. This measure simply seeks to add 60 days for us to be able to address this crisis. As some of my colleagues have already communicated, what's going on at the community level is nothing short of chaotic. It would be as though the entire child care system in California was facing closure in less than 6 weeks, without any alternatives, without any plan to go forward. So I respectfully urge all of my colleagues, those of you who have already, on the other side of the aisle, voted affirmatively to our previous action today on adult day health. This program will become as important to the future of California as child care is now. We're about 30 years behind in addressing adult care issues in this state. We do not have 30 years to catch up. I respectfully urge an aye vote.
Ms. Grove.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Republicans didn't vote for these cuts because we understand a business model. So let me see if I can explain it just a little simply. We pay $12 for a hard hat to prevent a $250,000 head injury. Therefore, you pay, in this situation, somebody to go to adult day health care for $300 to $500 a week instead of putting them in a state institution for $3,000 to $5,000. So we understand the differences in how you pay for preventative stuff. So we didn't vote for these cuts. And again, it's thrown at us at the last minute, wharfed to the desk. You passed a budget like a Pelosi thing. You had to pass it to see what's in it. Now you're finding out what's in it, and you don't like it, and you want to make changes. You only did that to protect your paychecks, and I think that's wrong. And for you guys to be able to do this and continue to get paid on an unbalanced budget is not right. So this budget still isn't balanced. You're throwing these things in at the last minute, at the last moment, at the last minute of the last day. And for you guys to do this is it's just not right. And you're just circumventing around the California people.
Mr. Davis.
Madam Speaker and members, I know that everybody has an opinion in terms of process and procedure, but I'd like to focus my attention on the bill before us for consideration. When we think in general about what we have done in this society, wherever you are, whatever state, and in particular here in California as well. We are where we are today because of senior citizens. And I can tell you, certainly there are some merits in terms of the complaints about the process and procedure. But there's a thing in life called reality that we all have to deal with. I mean, if I had my way, we would all be living in Beverly Hills with a Rolls Royce. But that's not the case. We deal with what is before us, and what is before us is, do we believe that there should be an extension for adult day health care programs in the state of California? I am a strong supporter of this temporary fix. And quite actually, since we're talking about dreams, if I had my dreams, we would permanently restore the service for adult day health care programs in this state. But as it is, in reality, we have 60 days to consider. When I look at all of the seniors in our communities, in particular in my own in South Los Angeles, this would be quite an asset. And even though it's on a temporary basis, I think that this temporary initiative is a very important one, and I strongly urge your aye vote.
Dr. Halderman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As the Vice Chair of Aging and Long-Term Care, may I ask a question of the presenter?
Without objection.
Why are we eliminating adult day health care at all if it's such a strong program that supports our seniors, which, by the way, is what I support and why I voted against this and plan to vote against this, since it only co-signs or enables the ability of this House to get away with something it should never have done in the first place, which is pass that unbalanced budget.
May I address the question?
Yes, and seeing no further questions or debate, you may close after.
Okay, I'll address the question and then close. The question was asked, well, why did we have to eliminate this critical, important program, which really none of us who voted for that wanted to eliminate? And the answer is fairly simple, because we were not able to get revenues. It's very simple. We tried to get a balanced budget with a balanced approach with a certain number of cuts and a certain number of revenue increases, and we were thwarted from that. We've been through that debate. But you can't just say, I would never vote for the cuts, and I won't vote for cutting anything. I'm not going to vote to hurt anybody. We've had this discussion, and then not vote to give us the resources to actually balance the budget, and then complain that the budget is not fully balanced because you want to see more cuts. It just doesn't, the logic doesn't add up, and we've been through this around and around. You just can't have your cake and eat it too all the time. It just doesn't work. Now, if you really like the program like you claim, and folks are saying that they didn't want to vote for the cut to begin with, then you certainly shouldn't object to delaying that cut by an additional 2 months. So if you want to be consistent and you didn't like the cut to begin with, then vote for this, because it postpones that cut by 2 months, and I would expect to see a unanimous vote on this, and I ask for your aye vote for everyone.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 50, noes 10. Measure passes. Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker, members, I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 63 to allow Mr. Hill to take up AB 459 without reference to file for purposes of concurrence and Senate amendments today.
Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We do object to this rule waiver and respect a roll call vote on it.
Okay. We need a second to Mr. Calderon's motion. Mr. Gatto. Okay. Mr. Calderon's asking for an aye vote. Mr. Hagman's asking for a no vote to suspend the rules to allow Mr. Hill to take up his AB 459 without reference to file for the purposes of concurrence in Senate amendments today. Clerk will open the roll. Mr. Calderon is asking for an aye vote. Mr. Hagman is asking for a no vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 48, noes 22. Motion carries. Mr. Calderon.
Also, Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent pursuant to Assembly Rule 97 to re-refer file item 117 to the Committee on Appropriations.
Without objection, request is granted.
And finally, I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 63 to allow Mr. Logue to take up his AB 494 without reference to file for purposes of concurrence in Senate amendments today.
Without objection? Okay, Mr. Bloomfield is asking for immediate transmittal on SB 97. Without objection. Okay, we're going to take up AB 459. Without reference to file, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 459 by Assemblymember Hill, an act relating to presidential elections.
Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, AB 459 is back for concurrence. The amendments in the Senate were non-substantive and just technical, and removed and added co-authors. I ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 49, noes 5. Senate amendments are concurred in. Okay, we are going to take up now AB 494 without reference to file. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 494 by Assemblymember Logue, an act relating to alcoholic beverages and declaring an urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Logue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. AB 494 is back for concurrence in the Senate amendments. Simply put, it passed the last time 75-1 on the floor. It just passed the Senate with unanimous support. The amendment simply adds Assemblyman Jim Nielsen as the co-author. I respectfully ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 67, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. Okay, we're going to go to the second day consent calendar. Does any member wish to remove an item from the second day consent calendar? Mr. Monning.
Yes, Madam Chair, I want to request file item 123, SB 224, by Senator Pavley, be removed from the consent calendar at the request of the author. Has that happened?
Clerk will note.
Thank you.
Mr. Calderon.
Yes, also a request to remove file item 135, SB 428 from the consent calendar.
Clerk will note. Okay. Seeing and hearing no further removals, clerk will open the roll on the consent calendar. I'm sorry, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 913 by Senator Pavley, an act relating to juveniles.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 38 with urgency.
Ayes 70, no 0. On the urgency. Ayes 70, no 0 on the measure.
Senate Bill 112.
Ayes 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 133.
Ayes 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 238.
Members, we're not done. We still have more work. Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 264.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 285.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 290.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 327.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 339.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 349.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 390.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 406.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 425.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 593.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 627.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 636.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 720.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 723.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 724.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 741.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 796.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 801.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 805.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 732.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 596.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 557.
Aye 70, no 0.
Senate Bill 107.
Aye 70, no 0.
And Senate Bill 272.
Aye 70, no 0. Okay, we are going to the first extraordinary session. Okay, we need unanimous consent to allow Mr. V. Manuel Perez to take up AB 13 without reference to file. Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We're doing the bill in chief, right? I would respect a roll call vote on the war waiver.
Okay. We need a motion and a second. Mr. Gatto. Okay. Mr. Calderon requests an aye vote on the motion to suspend the rule to allow Mr. V. Manuel Perez to hear AB 13 without reference to file. Motion was seconded by Mr. Gatto. Clerk will open the roll. Mr. Calderon asked for an aye vote. Mr. Hagman asked for a no vote on this motion. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 44, noes 21. Motion is granted. File item AB 13, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 13 by Assemblymember V. Manuel Perez, and act relating to renewable energy resources and make an appropriation therefore.
Mr. Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This measure is back for concurrence and is one of 4 bills that make up the Assembly and Senate Clean Energy Jobs Initiative. One of the key policies of this package was the passage of the 33% renewable portfolio standard, which will ensure a California market for renewable energy technologies. AB 1X13 will help us reach our 33% RPS by 2020 by ensuring the expeditious permit approvals in the prime renewable resource areas of the state, while also ensuring that the appropriate habitat and species mitigation takes place. Legislation passed last year by Senator initiated the Desert Renewable Energy Conservation Plan and also allowed renewable energy developers to pay fees to the California Department of Fish and Game so that the agency could have the staff capacity and manpower to expedite project reviews. This policy is responsible for initiating the construction of many utility-scale solar energy projects throughout California's desert region and stimulated job creation in rural areas of the state facing high unemployment, areas such as the Central Valley and Imperial County. AB 1X13 continues California's promise as a national leader in clean energy investments and job creation by expanding the Desert Renewable Energy Conservation Plan to include wind and geothermal technologies, establishes fee accountability and transparency measures, and provides assistance to local governments seeking to revise their general plans and zoning ordinances to encourage renewable energy development in their county. This bill has no opposition and is supported by the Large-Scale Solar Alliance, California Wind Energy Association, and the Independent Energy Producers, to name a few. There is bipartisan support for this measure, and I want to thank Senators Emerson, Runner, Harman, and Fuller for supporting the measure earlier. I respectfully ask for your vote.
Seeing no further... Oh, Ms. Harkey.
Madam Speaker, members, I could have probably supported this, but the fee structure has drastically changed from what it was when it first left this House. So now we're back with a higher fee, and it's gotten out of line. The reason that I think many of you did support it was a fee for service, and now it's really not that way. So I regretfully have to oppose it.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Perez, you may close.
Just want to state out loud that the fee structure was actually negotiated by industry. And so we have quite a bit of folks in support of the measure. And ultimately, this is about creating good jobs throughout our areas that have high unemployment and as well meeting our 33% RPS. I respectfully ask for your vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 50, noes 19. Senate amendments are concurred in. Okay, Ms. Skinner has a bill in the first extraordinary session file, AB 14. It's already on file. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 14 by Assemblymember Skinner and others, an act relating to energy and make an appropriation therefore.
Ms. Skinner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, like my colleague, Assemblymember Perez, this is the last of the 4 bills in the special session that we did as part of the Green Jobs package. We passed this off of our floor a number of months ago. The Senate has just sent it back to us today. The reason it's coming back to us is because there were some small technical amendments. This urgency legislation that received bipartisan support both in our House and in the Senate establishes the program that allows property owners, both business and residential, to finance energy efficiency improvements through loans that will be administered by our treasurer but provided by private sector banks. So this Clean Energy Upgrade Program is designed to meet the goals we set up last year for getting efficiency upgrades and putting many of our construction workers who were so hurt by the recession back to work, but also helping our homeowners and businesses save money on their energy bills. Again, the bill has bipartisan support when it left this floor, bipartisan support in the Senate. It has no opposition, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Donnelly.
Madam Speaker, members, I keep hearing these bills have no opposition. Well, we Republicans are opposing this. This is ridiculous. We are taking $50 million that we should reappropriate from the special district and put back into the general fund. What we ought to be doing is clearing the path and expediting regulatory relief so that everybody can have a job, whether it's green or otherwise. We have 2.5 million people out of work. I cannot believe that this is our priority in the first extraordinary session. I urge a no vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Ms. Skinner, you may close.
I ask for your aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 55, no 14. Senate amendments are concurred in. Okay, pursuant to Joint Rule 51, I move that the Assembly adjourn for the summer recess until Monday, August 15, 2011, in the first extraordinary session, and consent for the Senate to do the same. This motion requires a second. Mr. Calderon seconds. We're going to do it by voice vote without objection. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. It's been moved and seconded that the Assembly adjourn the first extraordinary session for the summer recess until Monday, August 15th, 2011. We are back in the regular session. Members, we are not finished yet. We still have a few more bills We have 3 more bills and 2 amendments.
Colleagues, we have a few more bills to go through and a few more amendments, so I ask you to take your seats. First one up, we're going to go back in the file to file item 74, SB 249, for purposes of amendment. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 249 with amendments by Assemblymember Ma.
Ms. Ma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, SB 249 makes changes to the appointment process for the Cal Palace Board of Directors. The amendments address concerns raised in the Assembly Agriculture Committee and maintain the author's commitment of having the committee review the changes. Respectfully ask for your aye vote on these amendments.
Mr. Hagman, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We do oppose these amendments. Respectfully ask for a roll call vote.
Mr. Hagman has asked for a roll call vote. Mr. Calderon and Ms. Ma are asking for an aye vote. Mr. Hagman is asking for a no vote on these amendments. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. This is on the amendments. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 41, noes 20. Amendments are adopted, back out to print and back on file.
Okay, file item 105. We're going to go back. SCR 33. Clerk will read.
Senate concur Resolution 33 by Senator Price relative to foreign investment.
Mr. B. Emanuel Perez.
Madam Speaker and members, SCR 33 is a resolution that touts the merits of the federal EB-5 visa program and the critical role that foreign investment can play in California's economic recovery and economic vitality. Promoting EB-5 investment opportunities in the state will bring an influx of money to California projects, which will in turn create job opportunities for thousands of displaced workers seeking employment. Permanent resident status through an EB-5 visa is available to foreign investors who have invested or are actively in the process of investing at least $1 million into a new commercial enterprise, which can entail the creation of an original business, the purchase of an existing business, and restructuring or reorganizing the business to the extent that a new commercial enterprise results, or a significant expansion of an existing business. An applicant seeking status as an immigrant investor cannot just put up some money and obtain a green card. The individual must meet certain standards and criteria, including demonstrating that his or her investment will benefit the U.S. economy and actually create jobs. Given the recent economic downturn, businesses are struggling to gain access to valuable capital that will allow for growth, new hires, and in many instances, give them the potential to continue to operate in these difficult times. There are many success stories for this program in our state, and the potential benefits that massive amount of foreign investment can have throughout California are very real. That's why Cal Chamber supports the bill as a job creator. SCR 33 promotes EB-5 so that foreign direct investment can benefit California businesses and the state economy in general. There is bipartisan support, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote on this measure.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 68, noes 2. Measure passes. File item 106, SJR 7. Clerk will read.
Senate Joint Resolution 7 by Senator Padilla and others relative to large capacity ammunition magazines.
Mr. Feuer.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. High-capacity magazines have been used by shooters in some of the most egregious massacres in the history of the United States. This measure seeks to have the California legislature on record urging Congress to enact 2 measures, one in the House and one in the Senate, that would restrict magazines to 10 rounds and no more. High-capacity magazines enable shooters to shoot one bullet after another without having to reload. Without going into a long litany of all the instances in which shooters have been able to use high-capacity magazines to massacre people from San Francisco to Virginia, we'll need to point to one relatively current example to exemplify the importance of this bill. Jared Loughner had a 30-round high-capacity magazine when he wreaked havoc in Arizona, including shooting Congressmember Giffords. He was only stopped when he had to pause because he ran out of ammunition to reload. 30 bullets in a row, however, had already been fired and already caused enormous death and devastation. Senator Padilla's measure simply puts California on record supporting federal efforts to bring a semblance of common sense to our gun rules. No one needs more than 10 rounds in a magazine for self-defense, for hunting, or any other purpose that's legitimate, and I urge an aye vote.
Dr. Halderman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There's nothing common sense about violating the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution.
Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. You know, I find this specious argument almost laughable. This is nothing to do with what you would characterize as assault weapons by them having a high-capacity magazine. This is a full-blown assault on the Second Amendment. You know, we don't legislate that you're not able to drive a vehicle because it has multiple passengers, and therefore if there's an accident, more people can be killed. Therefore, we should outlaw buses and airplanes and trains because there's tragic, horrific accidents that occur. In this particular case, you had someone who is deranged in their mind who chose to go and do something. We cannot protect society from the actions of a deranged madman. And you know, one of the things I get tired of on this floor, whether it's regulation after regulation, these assaults on the Second Amendment, it's as if you're scared to live in a free state and think like a free man. There are risks as well as responsibilities. And every one of us ought to be able to own every single weapon that the federal government and the state government can own, because it says in the Second Amendment that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And let me tell you, as a very avid shooter, a weapon is not valuable and is not useful if you do not have the capacity to fire it. You need the ammunition. This is a backdoor way to take away our Second Amendment rights. And frankly, I, for one, am tired, and I guarantee you the people outside of this building are tired of you constantly coming after them and making our communities less safe by depriving us of the ability to defend ourselves. I urge a no vote.
Ms. Grove.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, I just reiterate what my colleague said, that this does infringe on the Second Amendment rights. Law-abiding citizens that either carry a weapon or sport shoot or hunt, they follow the rules. It's the unlawful citizens that don't follow the rules, and no matter what rules you pass, those unlawful citizens are still going to do what they do, but you're just restricting the Second Amendment rights of the lawful citizens. So I would urge a no vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, Mr. Fuhr, you may close.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Under this motion, this matter before us, Congress would allow somebody to have a weapon that could do what I just did. Oh, we could do that. Excuse me. Madam Speaker, I have the floor, not other members of the legislature, and I'd urge you to have them respect that. The matters pending in Congress would allow someone to have a magazine that could do what I just did. Multiply that effort by 3. Jared Loughner purchased his 30-round high-capacity magazine lawfully. Do we really think that anybody in this room needs more than that 10-round capacity to defend herself or himself? Do we really think that anybody hunting needs more capacity than that before they reload? That's what this is about. And I dare say each of us, if confronted with the situation that Representative Giffords was confronted with, would sure wish for a 10-round limit. And Lochner would have been able to buy no more than 10 at a time. I urge an aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 45, noes 24. Measure passes. File items 107 through 108 pass and retain. File item 109 on the amendments, SB 226. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 226 with amendments by Assemblymember Fuhr.
Mr. Fuhr.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. So this is a statute by Senator Simitian that seeks to streamline our CEQA rules. The amendments before us would do about five things. They clarify what a reasonable, foreseeable future project would be to limit the amount analysis in a CEQA review. They make clear that a project that's exempt from CEQA doesn't lose that exemption because of greenhouse gas emissions as long as it complies with state and local rules. The amendments clarify what's called data dumping to assure that at the last minute someone can't unduly attenuate a CEQA review process. They expand the ability to use a streamlined process for projects that improve access to transit, and they limit CEQA, they provide limited CEQA exemptions in two instances, one for rooftop solar projects and the other for solar projects on disturbed agricultural land. These are all designed, these amendments, to make CEQA more friendly throughout the state of California, to streamline an important law, and I urge an aye vote on the amendments.
Seeing no further, without objection, we could take a voice vote on these amendments. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted, out to print, and back on file. And pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, I am re-referring the following bills to committee. File Item 74, SB 249-Y, to the Agriculture Committee, and File Item 109, SB 226, Submitting to the Natural Resources and Agriculture Committees. File Items 110 through 115 pass and retain. We dispense with File Item 116, File Item 117 and 118 pass and retain, and we're going to go back to File Item 46. We passed temporarily. AB 606. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 606 by Assemblymember Gatto and others, and act relating to fish and wildlife resources.
Mr. Gatto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, back from the Senate for a concurrence vote on technical amendments is AB 606, which will encourage greater participation in the state's voluntary conservation easement and wildlife habitation conservation programs. This bill passed the Assembly on a consent vote the first time. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 72, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. Okay, we've got two last budget bills that just came over from the Senate, and we need to suspend the rules. Mr. Allen.
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 77 to allow Mr. Blumenfield to take up AB 108 and AB 110 without reference to file for purpose of concurrence in Senate amendments today.
Without objection? Seeing and hearing none, request is granted. We'll take up file item AB 108. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 108 by the Assembly Committee on Budget, an act to amend an item of the Budget Act of 2011 and an item of the Education Code, making appropriation therefore to take effect immediately. Bill related to the budget.
Mr. Blumenfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this bill just came over from the Senate, but it's been in print since last week. Speaker, members, this bill makes technical amendments to the budget affecting K-12 education and community colleges. Specifically, this bill changes the following. Under special education funding adjustments, it changes the state special education budget item to reflect additional one-time Prop 98 funds and property taxes in 2011-12. The funds were assumed as part of the 2011-12 budget package, but are not fully scored in the Budget Act. Second, it deals with the community college fee increase trigger. It changes the provision of the education budget trailer bill to clarify that the community college fee increase trigger is operative pursuant to subdivision B of section 3.94 of the 2011-12 Budget Act, and if triggered, will commence in the winter term of 2011-12 year. And that's a clarification. And I certainly hope we don't see this trigger pulled. And the good news is that recently the Comptroller reported that last month's revenues were $440 million above the May revised estimates. So there is some care for optimism that these triggers will not be pulled, but we will all still hope and pray that they're not. And I ask for your aye vote on this technical amendment.
Mr. Nielsen.
Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, AB 108 needs some amendments, but these are not the amendments that are needed. The amendments that are needed are those that were slipped in at the last minute that absolutely hamstring our local elected school officials related to the budget. If we're going to be then doing those kind of amendments, put that back on track, then we have something that is worthy of support. It was something that engendered very significant editorial condemnation around the state of California in the aftermath of our budget. And one school services said that the legislature had eclipsed all previous low standards of integrity by those amendments. That's what we need to correct. Let's amend those provisions out. We will have something worthy of bipartisan support.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise to oppose AB 108. It's trying to fix a bill that is so bad that I don't think it can be fixed. AB 114 is such a poorly written budget bill that the school districts in my district and throughout San Diego County are literally screaming at us because of the requirements that we've put on them for their budget process that it is nearly impossible for them to comply with. They don't know how in the world they're going to comply with the rules and regulations that this body put on them for their budgeting process, and it's sad that we have transferred our budgeting process to the school districts and required them to be as illegitimate in their budgeting process as we have been here in this body. I urge a no vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Blumenfield, you may close.
Yeah, none of the comments have really been about these technical amendments, but I'll say in terms of the comments, the one thing we ought to realize in terms of the K through 12 education, it's one of the few bright spots that we had in this budget, where with an incredibly difficult budget where we couldn't get revenues, we had a $26 billion deficit, and yet we were able to keep K through 12 funding at the same level it was last year. Was truly an amazing accomplishment that I think we can be proud of. Again, these bills, I don't think any of the comments were directed at the technical changes in this bill. These are minor changes, and I ask for your support for them.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 44, noes 22. Measure passes. Senate amendments are concurred in. And file item AB 110 without reference to file. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 110 by Assembly Member Blumenfield, an act relating to courts, making appropriation therefore to take effect immediately. Bill related to the budget.
Mr. Blumenfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, AB 110 is a bill to help the courts avoid closures as a consequence of the $350 million in cuts that we imposed on them in the 2011-2012 budget. The Chief Justice has requested that we adopt 4 mitigation measures contained in this bill that will help the courts. Again, the savings from these measures will help the courts avoid closure, and I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 45, noes 23. Measure passes. File item 117 was unanimous, was re-referred by a previous motion, Lowenthal, to the Committee on Appropriations. I mistakenly said it was pass and retain, so that was file item 117, SB 568, will be re-referred to the Committee on Appropriations. Okay, this concludes the business on the daily file. Pursuant to Joint Rule 51, I move that the Assembly adjourn for the summer recess until Monday, August 15th. I'm sorry, Mr. Bloomfield?
Just wanted to announce that the Budget Subcommittee 6 will meet at 10 minutes after 12 in room 437 to hear the reform bills. 10 minutes after 12.
Okay, seeing no further announcements. Pursuant to Joint Rule 51, I move that the Assembly adjourn for the summer recess until Monday, August 15th, 2011, and consent for the Senate to do the same. This motion requires a second. Mr. Hagman seconds. Seeing and hearing no objection, the motion carries. It has been moved and seconded that the Assembly adjourn the regular session for the summer recess until Monday, August 15th, 2011.
Gatto vote change, AB 1357 from no to aye. I pressed the wrong button.
Gatto, Assembly Bill 1357, no to aye.
Yamada, vote change. File item 46, AB, where are we? Hold on a second here. I hardly do this very often. Where are we? AB 606, from aye to not voting.
Yamada, Assembly Bill 606, aye to not voting.
Thank you.
Vote change Conway, file item 102, SB 28, aye to no.
Conway, Senate Bill 28, aye to no.
What's my name on the... Okay, Swimmer Lara, vote change, SB 28, no to not voting.
Lara, Senate Bill 28, no to not voting.